Hello, Amber Vilhauer here, and I am excited to walk you through the journey of how this book came to be, The Long Forest Trail. It's a really special time in our lives right now, and I just want to thank you so much for sharing it with us. I've had a lot of parents ask, how do you write a book and how do you do the print production? And then I've had other people ask me the story of like, our conversations in the Long Forest Trail and why we decided to go with certain themes in the book. And then I've had other people ask me, well, what do you want to see happen with the book from here? So I'm going to unpack all of that during this session here with you. It really started in May of 2023, and I'm in making breakfast in the kitchen before Clay goes to school. And he comes in and he says, Mom, I want to write a book. And I laughed because I said, that is amazing that you want to write a book. I mean, coming from mom who launches books for her career, like that's amazing that you want to write a book. I would love to help you write a book. I'm thinking to myself, okay, we're going to do this. We're going to write a book. I mean, what better thing to teach a 6-year-old? I mean, we're talking about using our imagination and strategy and entrepreneurship and really discipline and follow through, right? And then the impact and giving and sharing and also, what do you do when there's attention on you? Especially coming from me, I haven't always enjoyed being in the limelight. I know how to do it because of the role that I have in my company and helping to influence the world in a positive direction, but it didn't come naturally to me. In fact, it was just the opposite. I'm somebody that growing up, I just wanted to hide and let other people take the spotlight. So I really wanted to follow through myself with this opportunity. And, I went out and I did a little bit of research about maybe what's the order? How do you prompt a 6-year-old to come up with characters and a theme of the book or the teaching points? We actually read a couple of books about how to write a children's book, and I didn't find a whole lot of value in them, maybe a little bit. And so, true to my nature, we decided just to go our own way with it. And we have a cabin up in the woods in the forest that we escape to as often as we possibly can. It's only about an hour, 20-minute drive from our home here in the city where we live to take Clay to school. And so luckily we get to retreat out to the cabin, be in the forest as much as possible and look at the animals and look at the bees and the butterflies and the flowers coming up or the leaves, falling and winter and snow and all of the different aspects of nature. And I remember in June, I was talking to Clay as we were walking down a trail about like, what characters do we want to have in our book? Because it could just be animals. Do you want to have humans in the book? Like who's going to be in the book? And we're in this beautiful environment in the forest. And we thought, what if the book was about mom and son, hiking down a long forest trail? And then all of a sudden you see his imagination activate. And it's like, well, what if we, went through the different seasons in the book? And then what season would we start? And we're talking about it, weighing the pros and cons of it. And we decide to start the Long Forest Trail book in the fall, as you can see here. So this is the cabin in the woods. Mom and Clay are going on this trail, and it's set up here in the fall setting. And then we thought we would move into winter and spring. And in my adult brain, I'm thinking, this already doesn't make any sense. These two people are walking down a trail through all the seasons. Like, how am I going to get this to fly? It's interesting when you're talking with kids, their imagination is so big, and how adults are like, we can't do that, And I really wanted to not go in that direction and just let the imagination keep rolling. So we stop for lunch. We always do that. We pack our lunch or snack and we sit by the river and we talk, and it's really awesome. And so we had to integrate that into the book, where we're sitting here by the river and coming back to the characters. It's like, well, who are we going to encounter along our way? And Clay just loves dogs. We used to have a dog called Bailey, and that dog meant everything to us. And unfortunately, Bailey transitioned a couple of years ago now. And I'm at this place of like trying to prepare mentally for getting a new dog and the responsibility of that. So it didn't surprise me that one of the characters in the book that Clay was really drawn to was having a puppy come along the trail. Well, like an older dog, actually, like Bailey. And we were talking about, you know, how the dog would be lost, and mom, we could help rescue the dog and we could give him warmth. And I'm thinking, okay, how are we going to get this into the storyline? And I said, what would the puppy's name be, or what would the dog's name be? And he says, Love Puppy. And my adult brain is like, Love Puppy, for the name of the, like, that's not really common or usual. Like, maybe the dog's name is blank or blank. And he goes, no, mom, it's got to be Love Puppy. And I'm thinking, okay, taking mental notes of all of the things that were most important to him. You know, he wanted to see hummingbirds, because when we're at the cabin, we always see these hummingbirds coming by our patio, and it's just become a thing. We were on a different walk one time, and at the very end of this long trail, we're almost to our Can-Am, the vehicle to take us back to the cabin. And just before we approached the vehicle, there was this squirrel up in the tree who was like dancing from branch to branch and being very playful with us. And so this was actually in July or August. And I remember saying, Clay, we should put the squirrel in our book. And so, you know, we had to find a place for that to happen. And we did. Here's the squirrel. Now that they're in springtime, nearing the end of their journey, you know, then we introduce the squirrel. And what you'll see throughout every aspect of this book is there's a learning lesson in every single page of this book. So really, first, we had to decide, like, where does the story take place? Who are the characters in the story? And then what are the teaching concepts that we want to teach others through this conversation on the Long Forest Trail? And that, I got to tell you, was difficult. So there were a lot of conversations where I was asking Clay, like, what questions do you have about life? And, you know, when you're working with a 6-year-old on such a big project, you know, he would be into it for maybe a minute or two, maybe 5 at most, and then he wants to go play. He wants to go do something else. So, I mean, this project took us months of writing and rewriting, and we had a Word document of the general timeline and the general story. And then comes the challenge of making the words rhyme. And something that I didn't know anything about is you have to make sure that there's consistent meter between the lines, you know, so there's almost this musicality to the story itself. Da, 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 da. Da, 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 da. And so the syllables that you're choosing, impact your meter. And so to make sure that everything is rhyming and you have the meter and the musicality, integrating this story with all of these different interesting components, I mean, it was a challenge. And I also wanted to make sure that this was Clay's story. I wanted to make sure that it wasn't Clay's idea and mom's story. I had to make sure to maintain the integrity of his word choices, which I can even point to. You know, there were some times, for example, Clay really wanted to call the puppy Love Puppy. The dog had to be wearing a cozy yellow coat, right? Even when I was talking to him, there's this really wonderful section in the book where Clay is talking about his happy place right here. And this was one of the biggest spreads. This is a spread. It's 2 pages, right, in one spread. This was one of the most challenging spreads of the entire book, because it's this time where I'm asking Clay, as we're sitting down for lunch, like, what makes you happy and what makes you shrink? And he was very drawn to the word shrink, which is difficult as a rhyming word. And you're thinking to yourself, well, everybody understand what shrinking means, right? What makes you happy is easy, but what makes you shrink? Like, what happens when you're feeling like you want to hide, where you're feeling, you know, sad and you just kind of want to shrink inside? So I'm asking Clay these questions while we're writing the book, and then trying to understand, like, how he interprets that, and what does make him happy, and then what does make him shrink. And then when he's shrinking, what does he do to get out of that? And so it became, I shrink and feel sad when the dark side comes in. Now, I remember in the editing process, like, that was a challenge. The dark side comes in. Some people were like, I don't know about that. But we wanted to maintain the integrity of it. It doesn't last long when I imagine its spin. And imagine there are no illustrations here for a moment. You're just staring at a blank piece of paper, and the word choices and how you decide to lay out the framework for the spread impacts then how are you going to illustrate that on a page. Hard feelings spin into a true joyful space. This is the space I call my happy place. I'm happy when I think of what I'm grateful for, like mom and dad, home, travel, and more. Now, where this actually comes from is ever since Clay could even comprehend me, right when I put him down to sleep, almost every night, we talk about his happy place. Hey, what's in your happy place today? And sometimes it's like, there's a mud river and dad and I are skipping rocks in the mud, or we're playing in the mud, or maybe there's a picnic on the next night and there's a picnic with grandparents and the cousins. And what are we eating in your happy place? And then sometimes we're up in hot air balloons way up in the clouds. And sometimes we're having dance parties. And sometimes we're eating tons of sugar and we're in like a candy cane forest. So this is coming from years and years and years of Clay and I having these conversations about these different things, and how they all mesh into the book was really interesting. And it had to come from him, as I was saying, it had to come from him. And then I could just try to ask him questions like, do you like the word space and place, or do you like space and face, or do you like space and and it was really, you're just taking one word at a time, all to say. So if we kind of come back, basically it was May where he says, I want to write a book. And by August, we had the storyline. Then I hired an illustrator, and we really got excited about the idea of launching the book in person at an upcoming event that I was hosting for entrepreneurs called Books and Business. It's part of one of the brands that I have in my company, and it's really designed to help teach business owners how you can grow a business more quickly and effectively if you launch a book, and then your next book and your next book, and how this can become, basically a food source that really helps to grow a company. Now, the event was going to be at the beginning of November, and in talking to my print production crew, I knew I had to give them the final print files before the middle of September. So I hired an illustrator and I said, listen, we only have about 3 weeks here to get this entire book illustrated. Now, a lot of illustrators will want 3 months, 4 months when they're illustrating a book because it's complicated. It's very time consuming. They have other projects going or sometimes full-time jobs. And so I really loved this guy's artwork. And I said, is there any way you can pull this off in 3 weeks? He said, yes. And I was putting all of my faith in that. He quickly came up with sketches for each page. So it was really, his work to imagine how this was going to be laid out in the book. And then after that, I was kind of waiting and waiting for the results of the illustration. And unfortunately, about a week before deadline, he came back to me and said, listen, I'm sorry, but I was traveling and I got sick, and then this happened and that happened. And unfortunately, I'm not going to hit your deadline. So either I'm going to need a whole extra month, or you should just go find somebody else. And I remember just feeling that dropping sensation in my stomach, because I just thought, how am I going to pull this off on top of everything else that's kind of going on in my world, from planning this book launch event in November, and school was starting up. And I also had a pretty big family emergency during that time, and my normal workload on top of being a single parent. And it was just devastating to learn that basically a week out, what am I going to do? And Clay's so excited. He's like waiting and waiting to see what Love Puppy is going to look like. And so what I did is I let that person know, hey, I've got to just move forward. I'm not going to not hit this deadline. Like, this is my kid's dream. So we ended the relationship professionally, and I went to 99 Designs And I put up a 48-hour contest begging illustrators to participate. And I said, listen, I can get an extra week from the printer if I pay extra. So we have 2 weeks to start over and finish this entire book, which is, I mean, basically asking for a total miracle. And a lot of the designers said, gosh, I wish I could. I love the story, but there's no way I'm going to hit this deadline. And I was just, that that time in our lives when we just have to surrender. We just have to trust and put it out there and say, whatever's going to happen is the way it's going to be. And, for me, when I'm like looking at illustrators, I just wanted it to be really special. And I hadn't really seen other illustrators out there that I was even that drawn to. But luckily, I found a guardian angel. His name is Andreas, and he lives in Australia, and he is a stay-at-home dad. He's a designer. He did a phenomenal job. I mean, the first submission that he did was this one. So he has 48 hours to prove that, like, hey, I can do this project. And there were all of these other illustrators coming in. We probably had 40 people submit spreads. And Andreas took the most I mean, as you can see, look at this detailed, time-consuming, complicated page. And he tackled that first. And nobody else did, by the way. Everybody else was choosing like much simpler pages. And I looked at his level of detail and his level of care, and it was clear. So Andreas became our illustrator. And I have to say, I rarely have seen people work as hard as he worked every single day. I'd wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning and there would be the latest spread from Andreas asking for feedback. He would stay up late making it happen. I mean, he was probably getting 4 or 5 hours of sleep during this time period. And he was determined and completely dedicated to helping Clay achieve this dream. And he just did an absolutely phenomenal job. So he did it in 2 weeks. And now that starts the print production process. So we work with a company called Merak Publishing, and Ashley Bunting is my absolute hero. So mad shout out to her. And Ashley and Krista, who's the owner, we have a special relationship where I actually opened up my own imprint. So it's kind of like a little bit of a publishing house, and it's called Strong Print Publishing, which, by the way, Clay came up with that name. He was very proud of himself, and I love it. So we're all about being strong on the inside and being strong in our impact and having courage. And so Clay came up with Strong Print Publishing, and we use Merak Publishing to help with the actual print production underneath, our imprint. And so basically what happens is Ashley needed the final InDesign files. So those are the illustration files laid out to perfectly match the print margins and the special needs of Ingram Spark, which is the printing company that we were deciding to go with. And so what she does is she's making sure that the formatting of each page is correct. And so we're making sure that we have the proper sizes and the proper, everything fits, especially with the spine. That was sort of an interesting challenge. Andreas had to move some of the elements around so that you could accommodate for the spine. Everything was just so crazy, so fast. And then what happens is you upload the artwork files into Ingram Press, hope that they get approved. Then you can get a kind of advanced copy to flip through it. And so that story is on our YouTube channel and on Instagram, our social media, that moment of Clay seeing his book in person for the very first time. Some of the options that we wanted, I definitely wanted hardcover. I did not want a jacket. I love the feeling of the mat. It's so soft and smooth, and I believe you can get really rich color. I actually paid extra to get the premium color printing so that it just sort of would leap out onto the page. I mean, if you're doing a nature book, it's got to be done correctly. And then, Ashley helped me get the book up on Amazon so that we could start a pre-order campaign about 3 weeks out from the book launch. And then along the journey, I mean, Clay took the book into his classroom. So he's now in first grade. And the teacher was able to read the book to all of the kids. And now some of the kids are like, Mom, I want to write a book. And it's really been so special to see his impact. Now we're inspiring other parents and children to go through this process as well. And actually, something that I really want to do is come up with a curriculum and a process to speed up the process for parents and help them get their book out to the world faster now that I've been through it. And I naturally think in terms of efficiency and operation. And so that's something that you can expect into the new year is we're going to absolutely be helping, families get more books out into the world. Along this path, Clay had a birthday, so he turned 7, and we decided to coordinate with a nonprofit organization called Burning Through Pages, and we're going to be donating the proceeds to them. So Burning Through Pages is a local Denver-based nonprofit that buys, physical copies for children, and then they'll actually go in and facilitate reading and discussion with the child to actually make a change in their consciousness and in their emotional intelligence. And I just thought that's such a beautiful thing to do. Kids want presence more than anything. They want you to just be with them, not distracted. This is honestly one of the big themes in the Long Forest Trail too, is really choosing to spend quality time with Clay, choosing to have these, deeper and more time consuming conversations, and choosing time to connect with each other and connect out in nature. So really was excited to work with Burning Through Pages. Now, unfortunately, it's not going to be huge levels of donations unless we can really push a lot of books, because when you are creating a book like this, it's selling on Amazon for just under $20 right now for the hardcover. There's also a paperback and Kindle version, but sticking with the hardcover for a moment. By the time you pay for the cost of the cardboard and the paper, the cost of the actual printing, especially if you decide to do specialty paper, specialty color saturation, that's all sort of adding to the cost of the book. Then you have the cost of, how Ingram Spark is working with other retailers. And then you have to pay the retailers for the shelf space, whether it's virtual or not. And so, Amazon is taking a big percentage of the proceeds for the book just to be able to advertise on their platform. So all to say, we're actually making just under $1 profit per book. And so, we'd have to sell about 5,000 copies to give Burning Through Pages about $4,500 in donation, which is not nothing. So as a book launch, strategist, as a marketer, as a business owner, I know we're going to be pushing a lot of copies of this book because I'm here to make real change in the world. This is more than just a special project. I mean, Clay's heart is so big and he really wants to help other kids. He calls them friends. I want to help other friends to know what he knows and to share and what he's been exposed to, which is amazing. And so we are going to be not only offering bulk copies on his website. If you go to clayvilhauer.com, you'll be able to follow along in the journey, see that a lot of people are raising their hand to leave reviews for the book, which is one of the best things that you can possibly do, is order a copy and leave a review on Amazon, because the more reviews we get, the more Amazon will expose the book into new customers that we wouldn't have reached otherwise. Also on the website at clayvilhauer.com, you can order bulk copies or just make a straight up donation. So for example, if you have an extra $1,000 laying around or an extra $20 laying around, you can actually make a donation, and yet we will then take the books and donate them and hand them out at children's hospitals, low-income schools, foster homes, etc., to anybody that has children, so that we can inspire them with this information. So thank you for anything that you're willing to do to support our cause by ordering a copy, leaving a review, considering a bulk order or a donation. We're happy to distribute it on behalf of your company, on behalf of your family. I mean, this is a really big deal. We're also going to be having a silent auction that is going to be launching on November 7th, which is the day of the actual release for the Long Forest Trail. And so on November 7th, the silent auction will be live virtually online. And we already have several contributors with big hearts that are donating some really incredible services and experiences, from round trip airline tickets to 3-day hotel stays and NFL tickets and more. Would really love your support and participation in the silent auction. Then my Books and Business event starts on November 9th in Austin, Texas, where we have an amazing group of people coming together to mastermind and grow their businesses together. We are actually pulling Clay from school that day. He's flying down to Austin. We will be launching his book live in Austin, having a bit of a dance party, and also, adding more fuel to the fire of the silent auction. He'll be there signing books. That whole launch experience will be live streamed through social media, which is going to be so much fun. And then the silent auction ends the night of November 9th at 9 p.m. Central Time is when the silent auction is over. All of the proceeds that we're going to get from the silent auction is going to go toward buying bulk copies of this book and distributing them out to kids for the holidays that wouldn't have had access to this otherwise. So thank you for any contribution, any donation you can make to the silent auction as well. Now, I thought what I would do is go through and actually read you the book, because that way you can kind of get a sense for really why did we make certain choices? What was the meaning behind it? So we have the Long Forest Trail here. Now, when it comes to the dedication, this was actually a really big moment, because this was one of the last things that we did. And I said, Clay, we've got to write a dedication. And he's thinking like, what is that? So we pulled out all of these children's books, and it was like, to my daughters, or to my cousin, or to my uncle, or whatever. So it was usually a dedication to a person. And I was trying to work with Clay, like, who's the book for? And what do you hope people do with the book? And, he just was struggling with this. Of course he would. This is kind of a strange ask. And he hadn't thought about that, other than just wanting to do the project with mom and wanting to help kids, but how would he dedicate? And so he got really still. He closed his eyes for a moment, and I'm thinking, I wonder what he's going to say. And he opens his eyes and he says, be the light. That's the dedication. And then he moved on. Like, he was so clear. He was so clear that that's what he wanted it to say. So what we have here is it says, be the light. I then added the text in black: to adults and kids around the world, be the light. Be the light means choosing to make the world a happier place. It's about focusing on what you can control, your thoughts, mindset, and feelings inside. When you feel good inside, it spreads happiness and brightness to people around you, like sharing a big smile or a warm hug. I even remember in this, I said, Clay, what does it mean to be the light? And he wrote a lot of this. I mean, I had to sort of polish it and formalize it, but he's like, when you feel good on the inside, it spreads on the outside. And I'm like, gosh, you're so great. So that was kind of fun. Here we go. Now we're into the book. Not long ago, on the last days of fall, Clay and his mom answered nature's own call. Hand held in hand down the Long Forest Trail, together as always, the two couldn't fail. Reaching a river, they spread lunch with care, while butterflies danced around in the air. Mom asked Clay questions to get him to think. What makes you happy, and what makes you shrink? I shrink and feel sad when the dark side comes in. It doesn't last long when I imagine it spin. Hard feelings spin into a truly joyful space. This is the space I call my happy place. I'm happy when I think of what I'm grateful for, like mom and dad, home, travel, and more. So you'll see there's Mom and Clay dancing in the clouds up there. We've got the hot air balloons, gingerbread house. There's Bailey. Bailey's always in her happy place. There's he and his dad going fishing. This summer I took Clay to Oregon and we saw the waterfalls. That was the whole reason we went to Oregon. And so It's hard to see with the spine here, but there's a waterfall coming down, and we always eat by our rivers and we love the mountains. And he said he wanted it to spill into the ocean because we love going to California and seeing the ocean at least once a year. So it's really cool. Leaves gently dropped as they went on their way, showing nature's lessons to accept change each day. Just then buzzed a mosquito, his bite strong although small, teaching Clay, through challenge, you can still stand tall. So this is Mr. Mosquito with his little top hat there. We love that guy. This actually came up because Clay and I don't like mosquitoes, man. And we got so many mosquito bites over the summertime. And it became this thing of me teaching Clay, you know, what do you do when you have this irritation? And man, mosquito bites, you just want to force it away, but you can't. They're there to stay for a period of time. And how just let it be. Don't aggravate it. Don't sit there and scratch it and make it worse. Acknowledge that it's there and just try to keep moving on with your life. And then this was a really fun next page. This actually happened while we were in Oregon. So, why does the world have bad things? Clay cried. To help make us strong, Mom said, feeling great pride inside. We always keep going, keep moving, she shared. Mindset matters most when life seems unfair. The two kept on hiking. Then out of the blue, Mom asked, is your bug bite still bothering you? Not anymore, Clay said, feeling great cheer. See, Mom said, things do get better, my dear. Life's worries are like bug bites, eager to stay. With time, feelings fade, moving out of our way. Frustrations get better. Annoyance takes flight, leaving us happy and feeling just right. So that happened. We were in by the bay and in Oregon, and we had this unbelievable trip because of the smoky fires. We kept moving from city to city toward the ocean. And you know, his bug bite, he'd just been complaining about it nonstop. And then finally, when we got to this last stop, we were getting ready in the morning, and I said, hey, honey, is your bug bite still bothering you? He goes, no, oh my gosh, I don't feel it at all anymore. And I said, huh, isn't that so funny? Like our emotions are so big and tumultuous sometimes. And we just want to force it away. We just want to have happy days again. And it's just is there to stay for a period of time until one day, oh my gosh, I no longer feel upset about the thing that this person did to me. They cut me off in traffic, or my employee did this other thing, or my husband or my wife did this other thing. And it's like all of a sudden, those feelings just pass and we can get back into a happy place. And so we were just having this wonderful conversation about it. And then I thought, oh my gosh, I think we could put that in the book. Winter arrived with its snowflakes big and white. The two walked and talked, holding each other tight. A dog appeared along their path one day, wearing a cozy coat to keep the cold at bay. So look at that. That's Love Puppy. You can see his collar even says Love Puppy on it, wearing his cozy yellow coat. Love Puppy read his collar tag bright. He'd lost his way, but found warmth that night. He's lost, Clay cried out, filled with worry inside. We are better together, Mom smiled and replied. With peanut butter and fresh water to spare, their kindness showed Clay it's important to care. I remember I had two people reviewing the book that said, you can't call the dog Love Puppy. It throws off the meter. It doesn't make sense. Do this name, do that name, do this. And I said, no, it has to be Love Puppy. Like that's what Clay was. So just to give you an example. The cold snow continued. Clay pushed through the slush, asking, Mom, why do you like nature so much? When life's pressures build, nature keeps me connected. I find that my fear is less big than expected. I look at the world and find wisdom around. It reminds me how to go from lost back to found. Spring arrived, possibility filled the air, flowers bloomed and leaves sprouted with care. A small, playful squirrel danced from tree to tree, inspiring the others to run and be free. Which is true. We were hiking down, one day down the trail. And when we got close to the end, I said, let's just be playful and free. And we started skipping and running and laughing and messing around with each other. And it was just this reminder of like not to be so stiff, and not to be so burdened by the to-dos and life's pressures, but to just be playful and be free and run, be more kid-like. That's what I love about, having Clay, is he reminds me to step into his world more than I'm inviting him to step into mine as an adult. The trail's end was near and their walks almost done. What did we learn? Mom asked, enjoying the sun. So you see here, we've got the two eagles. And it was so fun when Clay was, looking at Andreas's work, because Andreas would send a new spread. Of course, this one is absolutely gorgeous, one of my favorites. And Clay would say, yep, I love it, but I want to add a few more flowers and the eagles need to move. I want it here and here. I mean, he was very clear in his direction of what he was looking for in the layout. And Andreas was so great. Within 2 seconds, he would edit it and Clay would be like, yep, love it. So it was a really fun process getting him involved. So what did you learn? What did we learn on the trail? To show love and trust and to think on what's right, to demonstrate kindness, stay strong, be the light. That's kind of a fun addition. And so the three travelers soon found their way home, grateful for each day they'd gotten to roam. And now we invite you to do as we do, make connections with nature and with others too. So it's just kind of neat, like how the sun starts over here, right? And then it ends over here. So, I mean, we put a lot of thought into every aspect of this so that it just felt natural and almost intuitive, and it just felt right. And you could just kind of settle into the book and let it wrap its arms around you. I think a lot of the teaching concepts are going to roll right over people. But if you really look, and if you have children, even if it's a neighborhood kid, you have cousins and you're reading the book to them. I really encourage you to dissect each section of the book and have an open discussion about it. Like, can you think of a time where you felt challenged? What would be in your happy place? Why do you like nature? Like, what can we learn from nature? What can we learn from each other? How can we make this moment more playful and fun? And there's a lot in this book, so we encourage you to keep reading it and rereading it. The end. A little ladybug friend there, which was special because I remember, so Clay was born October 25th of 2016. And, it was cold out, I remember. And we live in Colorado and it was really, really cold out. I mean, summer was months past. And all of a sudden, the morning of Clay's birth, there was a live ladybug on my sink. So it was on the upstairs bathroom, not near any open doors or windows. And somehow a real ladybug landed right there on my sink. And it stayed there for 2 days. I wanted to capture it, but I was like, this feels like really divine. And if you look up kind of the deeper meaning behind a ladybug and what it stands for, it was really, really special. So just baked with meaning everywhere. And then you'll see about the book, about the authors, special thanks to everybody who helped me with the book. And then some extra pages in case, you and your kids want to draw or take down some notes. And then at the end, inviting parents and kids to experience the power of connection with nature and each other for stronger health and happiness. So I just, want to say thank you to everybody who's supporting this book launch, because this has just been one of the most meaningful experiences of my whole life. And doing this with Clay and all of the hours and hours and hours and hours and weeks and weeks and weeks that went into this. And now we get to have that memory forever. And now, as we're going out and distributing the books to other kids that would never have known about this otherwise, thanks to people that are making donations and just showing up with such big love and ordering bulk copies and leaving reviews. I mean, it's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. So thank you so much for listening to this video. And Let us know what you think of the book. And please even send us videos of you with your child or with your neighborhood friend reading the book, or sharing just an aha that you got or a special part that you loved. We'd really, really appreciate hearing from you. Thanks so much.